Hello, everybody. I am so excited to be here today with this episode because this beautiful being with me is someone that I love fiercely. And I'm so excited to be in this conversation and to share him with you. And I'm going to give him a nice, luscious intro in just a moment. But if you're returning to the series, thanks for being here. Thanks for holding space. Powerful conversations like this can transform the world. And it's so important to get them out there. And there wouldn't be a show if there weren't people watching or listening. So thank you. And if you're new to the show, this is something I started doing last summer when I was really trying to get involved out in the world and do my part. And I realized a lot of how I was doing it was not helping. So I decided that I was going to use my platform to share amazing people from all walks of life who I deem to be living a bold life. And once again, living a bold life might be where the guest shares about these massive, crazy leaps, or it might be where they share about taking a nap or getting out of bed when they didn't want to. We get to say what boldness is. And depending on where we're at in our journey, boldness changes. So I never know what anyone's going to share. So I'm super excited to know what this dude is going to share because I have known him for quite some time. I've been very intimately in his journey and he's had a lot of bold moves. I think I might know what, but I'm going to be just as surprised as you. Without further ado, this beautiful man is Bob Conlin. Bob, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me. I'm so thrilled to be here and get to spend time with you and talk about cool, bold things.
Yeah, and y'all, like it's even more special because I would still consider you a new daddy. You know, your little boy is just over a year, and Bob and I were actually going to do this earlier. But you know, any parents, you remember what that was like waiting to get your child in daycare and stuff? Yeah, the not enough time thing can be very real when you have a baby.
Yeah.
As coaches, I'm like, okay, we better just not push that
Yeah.
time context right now.
Like I can be available in 7 weeks. How does that work for you? Yeah.
So I'm excited that we're finally here. And just to give you an idea of who this amazing soul is, Bob Conlin is a coach, author, leader, husband, and father. Bob believes the relationships we have with ourselves, those we love, and those we lead have the greatest impact on our life's experiences. Powerful and fulfilling relationships are created once we get connected to and responsible for our generational traumas, triggers, and limiting beliefs for the possibilities that exist for each of us. Bob's unique and courageous approach to creating relationships has been featured on ABC World News Tonight, CBS, NBC, Good Morning America, and most popular social media outlets. Bob has extensive training as an ontological coach, is a professional certified coach with the International Coaching Federation, and is a co-founder of the Living in Love Incubator program. I love it. More and more ontology is happening here. So yeah, this is beautiful. And so if you all are wondering as we're getting going, what this PCC is next to Bob's name, that's the acronym for Professional Certified Coach, which I just shared, if anyone's wondering what that is. And then whatever platform you're viewing this on, the bio will be there, ways that you can connect with Bob, follow Bob, get to be a part of his journey. They'll be there for you too. Bob, are you ready to get this party started?
Absolutely. Well, thank you for such an awesome introduction. I'm like, wow, is that me? Are you talking about me? And I'm like, yeah, you are talking about me.
You know, one of the reasons why I read those, even though they're right where people can read, is I've gotten feedback before that it's powerful when people get to hear and be with who they are.
Totally. Yeah, that was exactly like the experience I had just reading that. I was like, you were being the mirror to me to me to actually like take in who I am in the world, like fully expressed.
Yeah. And so I've kept reading because I'm like, wow, if people can like come away with that from their own bio in the beginning, this is going to be just boom.
Yeah. It's my favorite part of the day so far. So thank you.
Yes. And so you all know the drill. I stick with the same handful of questions for these and just let this roll. Why? because we're all unique beings up to different stuff, but we all have a lot of similarities. And the questions just work. People start answering them before I ask them. So we're going to keep them. So I can't wait to hear this one. So Bob, on your bold journey that you have been on and will continue to be on, what is the thing, the piece of your journey that you feel most called to share today?
Yeah, I was, I mean, I knew this question was coming, and I was thinking about like the bold moves or the bold experiences I've had in my life. And there have been many, from the most tragic of circumstances to the most, like, to the scariest decision to jump off the thing or whatever it is. And I was thinking, what is the foundational aspect? What is the foundational bold experience I've had in my life that made all of these other things possible?
I love
So
that.
yeah, so you, some bold things I've done, right? I've become a father. I navigated the pandemic and one of the most scariest experiences of my life with almost losing the baby we've been talking about.
Yep.
Um, I think about, leaving corporate America to start my own business as an entrepreneur. I think about leaving a 7-year relationship because I finally understood through the work of working with a coach and looking at life in a distinguished way that, hey, this is not my person, and having to make that decision. I think about signing up to be coach trained, right? To actually say yes to something that's going to trigger me and scare me and have me look at myself. But all that being said, I think what made all that possible was my journey into sobriety. And I'm wondering, I wonder if that's probably not what you were thinking though, that I was going to share, was it, Jen?
It was not, but I
Yeah.
love where you're going because, listeners, viewers, I'm getting the experience that Bob is almost trying to kind of provide like almost a springboard story for you, because what happens is we build on top, right? And the more we practice transformation, whether it's coaching, therapy, whatever modality we're in, they change. We typically we don't start really getting momentum, I don't think, in our bold journey until the foundational piece is there, because otherwise we try things and they don't work and we feel like we failed, we feel like we suck, and it's like, no, you just tried to put like a Thanksgiving feast on a table with broken legs, that's it. So I'm getting the sense that you're really wanting to share like that moment for you where you could set the meal on there and build on top of and keep building.
Right. And like, the part of me wants to talk about like, oh, when I left corporate America, and like, or when I sat outside my wife's window for 3 months while she fought for my baby's life. Like, I want to tell those stories, but those stories would not have been possible without getting sober. And I think in the self-development arena, people are like, oh, I got sober, noticed I was drinking a little too much, or using too much cannabis or something. Like, that wasn't me. I was all in. I was horribly, horribly addicted to opiates. I was making awful decisions in my life. I was probably about a week away from overdosing and dying. It was bad. It was very, very dark, very, very scary. And the thing that I kept trying to figure out on my own was a way to get out of this. And every day, I would start with that fresh resolve of, here's what I'm going. Today's the day. And then by the end of the day, I'm hitting my head on the pillow at night, completely dumbfounded how I ended up in that same exact spot.
Yeah, right. And it's so easy to beat ourselves up.
Yeah.
When we're in those situations.
Right. So it was like getting sober, I couldn't do it on my own. And that was the biggest life lesson I think I've ever learned, was to ask for help. Because when I think about asking for help to help me get sober, was learning how to do that helped me learn how to ask for help in my business, in my relationships, and becoming a father, in growing and developing myself and taking care of my body. Like all the good parts of my life are the direct result of community, are the direct result of people helping me achieve dreams and goals that I could not even have imagined possible.
I love that. And so what I'm hearing is that request for help for sobriety, it was the beginning of building a muscle to asking.
Yeah.
Yes. And you all, we talk about building a muscle because the things we practice in here, they're no different than what you're doing with your body.
Right.
And you know, why it starts to build a muscle is, I bet it was never as hard to ask for help again after that, or quite as hard. I'm not going to say it wasn't hard at times, but that was probably the most hard.
Oh, absolutely. And you know, it's still something like myself, like most men, not to have a total generalization, but we're very self-sufficient. We want to figure it out on our own. We like to problem solve. We like to keep control over the things in the environment. And that in certain aspects is detrimental. It almost killed me.
Yeah,
Literally.
right.
I'm going to figure this out on my own. And then it was, like you said, building that muscle. You know, it's still a muscle I have to work on, but you know, instead of asking for help to be sober, I'm asking help in like, oh, what's the next level of my leadership, or what's the next level in the impact I can bring to the planet, or what's the next level of abundance I can bring into my business financially, right? It's different. It's not like, it's not life-saving, it's life evolving help now, right?
Yeah, and I love, one, I love where you went with what you're sharing, because you're actually the first person who spoke on this topic. So that's awesome. And two, you know, I also have the wiring. I mean, my mom has actually shared with me some of my first words were do myself, like fiercely independent, fiercely. And, you know, like I've shared on my own platforms, this is not about me, but I'm wondering, Bob, if you had the experience, the more I let others support me and rally, the more independent I ironically am.
Right. Yeah. Or like being myself feels more more natural or something. It's like, because I have these needs that are getting met, you know, by the help of this community or whoever's in my circle. And then it's like, oh, I actually feel more me on the planet doing the things I'm going about. And I feel more connected to myself. I don't know, it's almost spiritual.
It is spiritual.
Yeah.
And so you kind of already alluded to this, Bob, but you know how coaching works. We ask the question and sometimes there's more to say. So just a little bit ago, when you were sharing, you know, you were really intending to create a solution, get off that path on your own. But every night when your head hit the pillow, you were like, more of the same. And it sounds like you were noticing that you were going downhill faster, you know, anticipating that maybe another week you wouldn't even be here.
Yeah.
So, and you might just reiterate what you shared, but there might be more. When you really look at, you know, that push come to shove move, because there's plenty of addicts out there who will not choose sobriety.
Right.
There's plenty that will OD. There's plenty that will just follow along the path of addiction forever. So it's still a choice that you get to make or not. So is there anything else when that push came to shove moment came for you that you feel like it's pertinent to share right now?
I think for me, it was like this ultimate act of surrender, like in the face of receiving help. So what happened, I basically had an intervention at my in where I was employed, which has a huge part of my story of my addiction. And they were all basically asking me what was going on, and trying to understand some of my behaviors. And I remember in that moment, like I was trying to justify my actions, and that they weren't what they had anticipated or what they assumed, which of course they were. And I was trying to like lie out of it, or try to create some other fabricated story. And I just had this moment where like it was the person who was, it was an investigation, was investigating me, said, Bob, let me ask you a question. Would you want to work with someone who had a problem, admitted it, and got help? Or would you want to work with a liar?
Wow.
That was such a powerful statement to me. It like broke down all of the armor that I've been holding on to for years.
Yeah.
And I just remember my head sinking, going, it's all true. I was basically stealing from my employer. I'm like, it's all true. And, I remember looking up, and one of the people in the room was my manager at the time, and she mouthed to me, get help. And that was like the first time where A, I was honest in a very long time, and B, was open to receiving help. And even then, Jen, it was like, I got it figured out. I know what I need to do. I just got in a little over my head.
Right.
It's like all that rationalization and stuff. And,
it's intense. I had a friend who was going through a pretty big addiction, and I was trying to get them to get help. And the person's a smart rat. And the stuff they were telling me to justify, I was sitting there like, I know with every ounce of my being, none of this is true. And this story is so well woven, parts of me are almost believing it.
Right.
It's not true.
Right.
It's the power of rationalization.
Yeah.
Is huge.
And like I had everyone around me seduced into a fabricated story.
Right.
Like, how could something like this happen to Bob?
Right.
Bob's too smart for that, or
right.
Bob's this, or Bob wouldn't, or I trust Bob, and it was like, man, that house of cards fell down fast. And even to the very end, I was still trying to keep it going.
Right. Yeah. Right.
So, when I think about what pushed me into that bold decision, it was literally a life or death experience at that moment. And I think there was something outside of myself. I always think of my guardian angels, spirit being in the room at that time too. Like, this is your chance to get what you need right now. And I know it may not be what you think you need or what you want, but this is what's going to save your life. Right.
I love that you said that. I tell a lot of people when they come to like experiential events I'm doing, I'm like, what you need might not be what you think you need. So just be open, because I can't promise what's going to happen.
Totally. And that goes into so much of the coaching work that we do, is like, we don't know what we don't know.
Yeah. Right.
We're basing what's possible on experiences that we have experienced. But there's a whole other experience of life out there with a whole other realm of possibilities that we have no idea.
Well, I'm just so present too. Your coworkers supported you. They didn't get rid of you. They didn't make you, they went to bat for you.
Yeah.
That's powerful.
Yeah.
That's powerful.
Yeah. And it kind of, feeds into the asking for help, but like, if we look at success, which getting sober was a success for me, but if we look at success, I firmly believe it requires others. And we're so resistant to opening up in meaningful ways to other people, and are giving or receiving help from others.
You'll love this, because Bob has worked with one of the same coaches I've worked with, Hans. He is great if you are needing like a coach consultant for any work around like codependency, dysfunction. But I remember when he said to me once, he's like, imagine that you're winning like the Emmys for your business. He's like, the way it's going for you is, hi, I'm Jen, and I have no one to thank. I did all of this on my own. thank you. And he was like, have you ever seen the Emmys like that? And I was like, okay, I get your point.
Yeah.
I get your point.
That's so,
people are thinking their
that's
cat,
so
their
good.
dog, their grandma, their PR person. And you're just like, thanks to me. No one else did this. Bye.
Yeah. So good.
You can hear him saying it too, can't you?
I know. Yeah. That's why I'm laughing. And it's like totally spot on, you know.
Yeah, right. I know. It was a big B with. I was like, oh, that's not a good look.
Yeah. Yeah. But, you know, I think, you know, it's, and again, like even in the more recent bold moves, like it's been, you know, I've been surrounded by people helping me or sharing or holding space or coaching or leading or, you know, helping me therapeutically, like whatever it is, like from a guy who is so self-sufficient and wants to so figure it out on his own all the time. It's such, it goes against everything that like I would normally do, which is be open and receive and ask for help. And yeah, but seriously,
I get that. The joke, Bob and I actually went through the same coaches training. And the joke when I was on the team was, oh, there's Jen showing up again when she has it all figured out. But when she's quiet, she's figuring it out on her own, won't let anyone in. And when she's back, she's figured it out and it's neat and tidy enough to let you back in. Once again, I was like, damn, you guys know me really well. Damn it.
Well, I think, you know, like, so if we address like what's behind my self-sufficiency, it's all like, I learned that I couldn't trust people. People were
right.
They were going to take away something. They were not going to give me what I needed. And like, I had to learn. And I feel like as humans, we all have some bit of this where we learned that we can't trust people or that life is dangerous or whatever to varying degrees.
Yeah.
And, you know, so I think that we have as a society like this resistance to get help, right? Like help is almost a bad word.
Yeah, you know, I that was my thing too. Like, because you know, you have an idea of where I grew up, very rural.
Yeah.
And you know, when I came in a strong intuitive being, and I remember looking around and I was like, none of these adults have anything handled. They're messing up the planet. They're getting divorces. These adults who are supposed to take care of me, all of them are a mess. And I do not trust any of them.
Yeah.
And that was my story into just handle your business alone.
Yeah.
Yeah. So y'all, if you resonate with this, it doesn't have to be that way. We could be poster children for shifting. And and I love that you're sharing this, Bob. Really, ultimate act of surrender in that situation. I can't imagine it being anything else.
Mm-hmm.
Your coworkers intervening and you just being open to receiving the help.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
And so you are continuing to, and you know, y'all, that's very normal when you start kind of making bold moves. And you know, I love this show because some people come on here and they're like, well, that wasn't bold for me, but other people might think it's bold. But when whatever it is to us, when we start doing it, again, it gets easier. And so we normally are like, oh, I'm onto something here. I'm going to keep going. You know, I'm going to keep this momentum going. But what I found is for every guest on here, we have found, and I use this word for lack of a better one, but you're swimming my waters, so you get it. We tend to need a structure, a formula, things. They might change seasonally, they might ebb and flow, but we always need some kind of structure to support us so that we can keep showing up, keep taking the leaps, keep saying the bold thing, doing the bold thing. And for you, what is, and some of it might change, so whatever you feel called to share today, but what is part of the things that you found you need to keep showing up as this leader? And you've talked about leveling up, to keep leveling up. Mm-hmm. So I think so often when people are working with other types of professionals, like we're in the realm of ontological coaching, which is definitely more holistic, you know, but sometimes people get themselves into other situations where we're not taking into account all the things a person really needs to get the result, to perform, to be this person that a lot of these other coaching programs talk about.
Mhm. Yeah, so I think when I think of when I think about like the formula, it's and I love how we started this call. It's like having a structure that reminds me of who the hell I am,
Yes.
right? And like who the hell am I, right? Like discovering, building that relationship with yourself to actually discover like who are you outside of the complaint, the fear, the confusion, the unknown, the past, the trauma, the hurts, right? Who are you fully expressed as the soul and the spirit that you were put on this planet to be, right? Like starting like how do you get in that conversation every day, right? Left to my own devices, I wake up, I'm worrying about like what my schedule looks like, how am I going to get to the gym, and this and that. It's very like in the weeds, um doing based, right? But
Right.
what is a structure just helps remind me of who I am fully expressed as as Bob on the planet. So when I think of what that structure looks like for me, I work with a coach. I work with uh, like a spiritual mentor.
Mhm.
And I try to take, and I have what I like to call like I'm challenged in many areas of my life and I'm in action inside those challenges. So it's like I'm on my,
Mm.
and I love this term, like Jen, you introduced this term. Jen, I was Jen's client for like 2.5 years, FYI.
Mhm.
So one of the things she said to me when I was, I think in a breakdown or I was having a bunch of feelings about something, she's like, it sounds like you're just on your growing edge,
Mm.
right? So if you think about your own life and where you're at, can you take inventory? Are you actually on your growing edge in your relationships, in your career, in your health and well-being, in your relationship to spirit, in your relationship to self, and the way you give and receive love, right? And I think that is the magic place to be in life, is that it's this growth mentality. And it's not like that if you're not growing, you're dying, but it's where you get to experience yourself and your your spirit and your humanity is at that growing edge. So what is the structure that's going to have you be at that growing edge? For me, it's working with some coaches. It's
Yeah.
I'm in on like an ontological mastery program right now. I'm
Ooh.
working with with the talk about. I'm working with like a therapist.
Mhm.
I have a personal trainer that kicks my butt. Um, so if you look at what is the thing there, that's the common thread, is those are all people that help me. So we
Yeah.
kind of come full circle.
Yep.
So um, ultimately, I think like the form is to discover who you are outside of what you know.
Yeah.
I know it's very ontological and maybe out there for some folks, but discover who you are outside of what you think you know about yourself. Get some help. See where areas you want to push into that growing edge, and then have surround yourself with people that want to lift you up and help you in that manner.
Yeah. And I love how you said it. Structures to remind you of who you are. Because what I hear a lot of people saying is, I don't want to get help because I don't want to become reliant upon another, or I don't want them to do the work for me. And I try to tell everyone the modalities for you, and they're out there, would be the ones where you're actually doing the work, right? No one's telling you what to do. There's space for you. So I love that you said that. And every guest I've had has shared a lot of different types of self-care stuff. So you've gotten to hear a lot of different things shared. And I love it, because what you've all gotten to see modeled is, a lot of them are very similar, but a lot of them look very different, right?
Yep.
Like trainer, coaching, spiritual mentor. I love that you said part of it is being in action inside challenges. Because if we just let the challenge hold us back and hold us back, there's an impact to how we feel, our spirit. And when we're in action to work through it, we don't get that story of I'm stuck, because we're actively working. And if anyone hasn't heard the term growing edge or doesn't know what it's like in your day to day, if you're an athlete or you practice yoga or anything like that, you've probably heard the term there. You know, whether you're running, whether you're in a pose, they're probably telling you, you should feel this and you should not be injuring yourself. So don't push it past, but kind of stay right here. So that sweet spot, you can feel it in your life, in your breath, in your body, in your mind. It's there. And I love that you shared these. And you know, and everyone, I always want to give full permission. You might shift them seasonally. You might shift them where you're at. Like before, I noticed like my physical human, it needed a lot of stuff that it doesn't need now. And now I'm like, oh, my physical human body doesn't need some of the things it did. And now all of a sudden I'm needing a lot of energetic support. And so I'm like, oh, my human is good now. It's containing like my soul better, but now my energy needs a little help. So it's really interesting to see how it ebbs and how it flows.
Yeah, and to be aware of that ebb and flow.
Yeah, right.
So, like, what a gift to yourself, right? I think like how, again, this speaks to a lot of the relationship work I do with relationship to self is like, what is actually going on over there? You know,
Yeah.
Down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 levels of what's actually going on with that, how you're relating to yourself. And to even have that level of awareness of what you do need is extraordinary.
Like all of a sudden, years after getting very powerful acupuncture, I just started noticing something's different. What's going on? And after you and I get off, I'm working with my medicine woman, one of my structures, and she does a really cool thing where and y'all, I keep my intuition. I'm kind of learning, like, I cross-check my intuition with her read to see where she's at. But she was like, yeah. She was like, really interesting, Jen. She's like, all of a sudden, like your system is reading really low for you needing acupuncture. And she was like, the number that you're getting is lower to where I wouldn't even be doing it right now. And so I started noticing the same stuff with body work. All these things were like, I have to have them or I will not be okay. That was my story, right? I have to have them or I will not be okay. And so then all of a sudden I was like, oh girl, you were in a story about your self-care.
Yeah.
And I got curious and I got supported and I went into inquiry and I keep checking in, right? Because there might be a time I need to bring them back. So I'm not over here like never meet them again. I'm like, how do I feel today? Like what's coming up when I imagine that experience? And my system's like, we're good.
Yeah. Yeah, it reminds me of like kind of checking the boxes for the things that we need, and then being at effect of like, I'm doing all the things I'm supposed to be doing and I'm still not blah, blah, blah. What's wrong with me? What's wrong with them? Right. And it just creates that distance. And it's like, you know, again, having, you know, I was very much at that point in my life a couple of years ago in like my leadership, and it was reflected back to me as like, your support structures aren't sufficient to where you're at or where you're going in your life. So I had to level up. So all of a sudden, in addition to like working with a therapist, I'm like talking to a shamanic healer. I'm like, what planet am I in, right? Or, you know, maybe it's, you know, maybe you need to be working with your physical trainer or your personal trainer 4 times a week instead of 2. I'm like, what? That costs money. That's too much, right? But it's like both those things got to, you know, supported me, helped me in my next level, which all the abundance came with it, you know. But it was like this resisting, and all of that is, I think, where many of us, myself included, just stop or find the evidence of, I did the thing and it's still not worked, so screw it.
Yeah. So y'all, while we're on this question, which is kind of like in the self-care department, like really be curious. Like I had a coach, and Bob, you also know him, Dave Keenest, y'all. He was my first coach, Bob's too. And I was doing something I used to do quite a lot back then, which was complain. And I remember complaining to him, and I was like, well, Dave, like this self-care is like a full-time job, and I'm just running from appointment to appointment to appointment. And he's like, well, you're checking the doing box. Did you ever think you wouldn't need so much self-care appointments if you actually just were less busy and rested more? And I was like, oh, you make it sound so easy, but you're right. You are right. And COVID was a big gift for me because COVID, when everything shut down, got me to reevaluate my structures in a new way. And I was like, yeah, you were doing far too much doing self-care.
Yeah.
And you need to reel it in because that's not what you're about. And it's not actually helping you.
Yeah. And which is just like compounding the breakdown that was there in the first place.
Right. Oh, juicy. I love this. We've gotten to some newer facets of that section. And so again, Bob, for this next question, you kind of already alluded to this, but again, you might have more. If you didn't make that move, and yes, there was an intervention, but again, it was still a choice to be in that conversation. You could have been like, screw all you, and you could have walked out and never looked back, right? But you chose to be impacted by that statement and speak the truth. So if you didn't choose to receive the help that intervention provided and just be open, where do you think you might be?
I mean, my gut, like my heart tells me like I wouldn't even be here. Like it was that dark, it was that bad when it got to that point. And it's so weird to like share this story because that it seems like I'm talking about someone else. I'm so far removed. So this was like in 2006. I feel so far removed from who that person was.
Right.
I mean, it was still me, but like that person in 2006, there's no way could have created a life that he's created right now. Right.
Yeah.
And I think too, it's like I was actually given a choice right then and there, was get help or die. Those were kind of my options. And if I'm being honest, at that time, like death seems like a reprieve.
Yeah.
I was so sick of being sick, sick and tired.
And the
Sick and tired of
hard one.
Sick and tired of being sick and tired. And I remember like a few days later, I entered treatment and I was there for like 4 months. And I remember in that time, it was just like, how can life possibly go on without me? Like how can I possibly leave life to go get help and take care of myself, right?
Yeah.
And
right.
One of the biggest gifts that I got was that within a couple of weeks, I lost my job, my marriage dissolved. We sold our home, we sold our car, and I basically came out of treatment homeless with nothing. I had a program and I had people around me to help me rebuild. And like, it was literally at 32 going back home to live with mom to rebuild.
Wow. And hold that thought. I'm just going to get up and grab something real quick.
Yeah.
Y'all, I just got my little, your Mac will sleep soon unless plugged into a power outlet. And I'm like, oh gosh, normally it lasts for way longer. Mac, don't be dying on me now. don't want to need a new computer. All right.
So you're all just stuck with me right now.
We don't want to let the video die in our last couple of minutes here.
Right.
Heck
right.
no. All
so
right.
I mean, I honestly think that, if for some reason I didn't die and like stayed alive, like I would be on a way different trajectory, which probably included a lot of terrible failed relationships. I probably certainly wouldn't be a father or an engaged, loving, compassionate father, right? I certainly wouldn't have 2 thriving businesses. My health would probably be in major jeopardy. Like there'd be a whole other path of life that I would have taken, which would have eliminated the last 15 years or so that have given me such a glorious, incredible life.
Yeah, and y'all, like the thing about making the bold moves it's your choice, and no one's here to tell you you're right for doing it or wrong for doing it. But kind of like Bob and I are chatting about here, it might support just to look at what's the impact of choosing and what's the impact of staying where I'm at. And we can see for Bob, like, not only would Bob have missed out on a great life, but so would the world. Like, you're doing things for the world and the planet now at a time where it's crucial, and while your story might be a little bit different, where you might have physically died, maybe some people by the time they're, I was going to say 95, but I'm like, okay, we might not all live till 95. We'll say 80, but you know what I mean? Some people might say, wow, it kind of feels like I didn't really live a life. And you know what I mean? You guys know where I'm going with this.
Yeah.
And so, we have all those feelings. And so, weigh it out. And again, just to kind of piggyback up to the second question we asked, when he made the move, Bob had support. And you all have heard me say in these episodes before, if you are ready to make the move and you find that you are struggling to do it alone, the move might be asking for help and then making the next move. But I wouldn't be where I'm at either if I didn't start working with my first coach and ask for help before that.
Yeah. I had
burning bridges left and right.
Yeah. I had a recent objection to someone hiring me a little while ago, and they're like, I just need to really get my life figured out before I start working with you.
I know. You're like, well, my work is done then.
I'm like, this is exactly what I would support you with. Like, but like, even in that mind frame, like, you can't even see like where the help is at when you just got to get it figured out. Right.
Yeah.
Like someone offered, like, here's my hand, and like, you can't even see it to take it,
Yeah. That cave brain is strong. Right. And y'all, we like to figure it out and be right, because our ancestors would have died if they didn't know where to hunt and all that good stuff. So when you hear yourself saying that, you are your cave ancestor. And the thing to do when we want to evolve is say, I'm going to do what my cave ancestor didn't do. Yeah. And I'm going to go talk to someone else about these nuts and berries and stuff.
Love it. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Now, Bob, you have already been so generous. I love these because every single episode, someone could watch 5 minutes or the whole thing and get tons of value. You've already shared a ton. And so what you share next might be repeat, or it might be something new. But if you were going to go out on a piece of sage wisdom to living a bold life, like the thing you really want to leave people with, what is that for you in this moment?
Let's go with what popped in my head. Every relationship you have, so the relationships to the people you love, relationships to the people you lead, coworkers, your relationship to the world, your relationship to life, is all impacted by the relationship you have with yourself. Every relationship you have is a reflection of the relationship you have with yourself. So the piece of wisdom, or like the invitation I would offer anyone who's watching this, is go in everything everything you want, everything that's in the way, everything that's possible, everything that seems impossible is centered in this relationship with yourself. So to help discover that relationship, again, full circle, it requires help. We're not in we don't even know how to be in a conversation about growing, developing, nurturing a relationship to self, right? Like, what does that mean? How do we get there? Why would we want to do this, right? Yeah. So my whole philosophy is based in relationship, that our relationships to ourselves, those we love and those we lead, again, it truly impacts our experience of life. So if you're not where you want to be in whatever area, start here first.
Yes. Yeah. Love that. I love that. And y'all, we make it sound easy, and we realize that sometimes starting in here is terrifying. It's why I had created such a mind-blowingly busy life, so I didn't have to go in there. And again, you're probably not going to be surprised, but there's a lot of people out there, and they don't have to be professional. Even you could call a friend and say, can I reach out when I'm done? But if you need support, there's a lot of people out there, even if you don't think there are, that will hold the space while you go within. Thank you for sharing that, Bob. And thank you for sharing everything, to be vulnerable and transparent and authentic, so as to provide value for others. Such a gift.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I've been looking forward to just spending time with you, but then also getting to talk about boldness in life. And thanks for having me talk about something I probably wouldn't have talked about. Like, I had to really go back, and like, I really wanted to be open and vulnerable and honest, which like what was the boldest move I've made in my life, and it was then.
And y'all, you always know my request at the end before we leave. I have heard wild stories about how people have gotten their hands on the interview that they needed to see at the right time. Hearing stories like this when someone needs to can change the trajectory of life. So if there's anyone that you find you're thinking of, you're feeling, you're seeing, please share this with them, because they might need to see it now. And this could change their life. I have heard stories where these have. Thank you so much. And I'll see you all soon. Thanks again, Bob.
My pleasure.